Yo, what's up guys, I'm Yannick from the Produce School, and in this video I'm going to show you how to make music like Brooks. Brooks is a super talented producer from the Netherlands, and he collaborated with some of the biggest artists in EDM like Martin Garrix and David Guetta. Anyways, in this video I'm going to show you how to make a drop, build up and breakdown like him. So make sure to leave a like and subscribe, and without further ado, let's get straight into this. Every preset, sample, vocal, basically anything that's used in this video comes from our pack Futuristic Volume 2, which is our brand new Future House and Bounce sample pack. If you want to support the channel, then make sure to click the link over here or use the link in the description. I started with the melody for this project because it's one of the most important things of a track. The melody has a lot of repetitions in it, which is great, so you can memorize the melody quickly. So for instance, this part is the same as this part rhythm wise, and this part the same as this part. After I made the melody, I started working on the leads. There are a few layers in there which I will go over one by one. First one sounds like this. This lead really sounds like something Brooks would use, so that's why it's in there as well. The second layer sounds like this. And it's a bandpass distorted saw. As you can see, I put a bandpass filter on it, and then after it I put a lot of distortion on it, like here. And this gives it like an electro house lead effect. The third layer is this one, which is almost just the init preset from Serum with a saw wavetable. There's a little bit of noise on there, you can't hear it that much. I also put the portamento on, so it gives those nice glides at the start of every note. The fourth layer is a big super saw, which sounds like this. Another layer, this one is more plucky, so it gives this nice punch to the leads. And the last layer is this whistle sound. There are some effects on every separate lead, like on this first one just an EQ to cut out some unnecessary frequencies. For the second one there's a camel crusher which probably does some compression and distortion, like here. You can hear that it makes a huge difference to the sound, which is great. For the third one, there's just a basic EQ on there. For the big super saw as well, but there's also a stereo shaper on it, which spreads the sound to the sides of the speaker, which makes it sound like really big and wide. And on the plug, there's a little bit of OTT and an EQ as well. Let's move on to the bass line. I will show you every layer separately so you know how they sound like. The first one sounds like this. There are some higher notes in there, which gives it this really bouncy effect. The second bass layer sounds like this. And it's like this typical Future bounce, just a Milo Mesto bass. Third layer is more of a support layer. You can barely hear it, but I will put up the volume right now. And that one just works as some mid bass, which adds a few harmonics to the bass. Another bass layer. And then the sub bass. A trick that Brooks uses a lot is adding a growl or dubstep sound underneath the bass, like this one. If you layer that with the bass almost starts to speak, which is a cool effect. There are not that many effects on the bass, mostly just EQing and adding compression and distortion with Camel Crusher, which just fattens up the sound. Maybe some OTT. But yeah, there's not much crazy processing going on. All the basses go into this bus and it adds just some sidechaining with kickstart. To fill up some space in the track, I added these chords. There is some processing going on, like cutting out the low frequencies, adding distortion with Camel Crusher, and a lot of OTT, which compresses the sound a lot, but I wanted to go for that really compressed sound, and just some basic reverb, like really short. The drums in the drop sound like this. There's a tom which really helps with the rhythm of the drop. It's not always playing the same rhythm as the bass or melody, which gives it this nice offbeat groove. In the second part of the drop there are a few more elements like this ride, or this hi-hat, and this little like shaker loop, which is just really soft in volume. There's a step at the first hit of the drop, which really makes the impact of the drop a lot better. All three layers together, they sound like this. First layer is a brass step, like this one. There's just some kickstart on it. Then there's a ride. You can barely hear it, but it's adding something. And then there's another step. They're all tuned to G because that's the note of the bass line. To make those steps more powerful, I added this white noise, because without it sounds like this, and with it sounds like this. There's also an automation for tape stop for the bass, so it cuts out whenever the steps stops playing. I added these chords between the first and second part of the drop to create a nice transition. They sound like this. There's an automation for the rate of the LFO in Serum, so you can control how fast you want the rate to be, like this. And there's also a drum fill and a bass growl in there as well. To make the second part of the drop a little bit more interesting, I changed the melody, and the whistle is also pitched up 1 octave so you can hear it better. Something that Brooks does a lot is creating outros for his drop, and this makes it easier for a DJ to mix in another track. So that's what we did as well for this project. We created like an outro drop, which sounds like this. It's basically the second part of the drop, but then we changed the leads into a vocal chop, which plays the same melody basically. There are some effects on it, like EQ, a little bit more high-end so you can hear it better in the mix. A distortion, like really distorted Camel Crusher. And some reverb and kickstart. Let's move on to the breakdown. The breakdown is fairly simple. At the first part there are just some chords playing and a snap. The sound is inspired by Brooks' track with Julian Jordan called Without You. It's a filtered saw chord with an LFO which creates the rhythm, and there's some distortion on it to make it a little bit more unique. To introduce the next part, we added transitions, down filters and impacts like these. And it's always super important to use those kind of effects to make your transition smoother and let people know there's something different coming. There's some basic drums playing, the kick from the drop but filtered. Snap is still playing. And then the claps from the drop are in there as well. We added vocal chops to the breakdown. They sound like this. It consists out of 2 layers. The first one is the one you can hear the best. And the second one is this like lower pitch down layer. They go into this mixer channel which has a peak controller on it. The peak controller controls the delay. If you want me to go in depth into this, then please let me know so I can cover that in another video. And long story short, the peak controller makes the delay play only when the vocal is not playing, if that makes sense. Then there's an EQ on it which adds a lot of high frequencies, a reverb, another EQ which is used for filtering, and another reverb, but this one is not used. The build-up is really similar to the breakdown. The same chords are playing. But then we added this snare roll. And like all sorts of effects. The lead is also playing, but just in the background, so the listener gets introduced to the leads, like this. During the build-up, it's pitching up higher and higher, so this really gives it that building up effect which you want. The same goes for the vocal. This one is also pitching higher and higher during the build-up. Last thing I'm going to show you is this fill, which is also used during the transition between the first and second part of the drop. But I think there's another like bass scroll layer, which is this one. It's really low in volume, so you can barely hear it. And that's it for the breakdown, build-up and drop. Now let me just play the end result for you. If you have any questions regarding this tutorial, then make sure to drop a comment and I will try to answer them all. For now, I want to thank you guys so much for watching and I will see you in the next video.